Good morning. I recently finished reading a book called The Paradox Hotel by Hart. This is a science fiction novel and takes place in a version of our world where people have discovered the technology for time travel. Although time travel tech in this world lets people move back into the past, but it does not allow people to travel forward into the future. And there are a number of theories as to why that is. Also, people are kind of afraid that if you go back into the past and make a major change, then it could cause the entirety of reality to break down, which means that there are a lot of rules as to what can and cannot be done using this technology. As a result, the main thing time travel is used for is actually a thriving tourism business where people pay to go on vacations to different eras in history or historical events just to observe what happened firsthand. The Paradox Hotel is a kind of a companion to the center where a lot of these excursions take place, so it's where people who are going on these vacations often come to stay. It's also a really unusual hotel in its own right because of the spillover from the nearby center. So when people engage in time travel, it can cause a kind of radiation that does weird things, I guess, to the people and places that are exposed to it. If you get enough of it or you're especially sensitive to it, then a person can become what they call unstuck. So I'll talk more about that in a moment. The main character of this story is called January Cole, and she's the head of security at the Paradox. She actually used to work for the TEA, or the Time Enforcement Agency, and she was apparently a really skilled agent. But she was forced to retire when she became unstuck. So when a person is unstuck, they basically no longer perceive time in an entirely linear way. Sometimes she might see someone come into a room 5 minutes before they actually do, or she might hear a conversation a lot of time before someone actually says anything, or even maybe she'll see someone walk by who actually walked by several years ago. It's a little bit confusing because she sees both what's happening now, sometimes what might happen in the future, and also sometimes relives the things that have happened in the past. And this because of this, she had to retire from her original work. It's also a really dangerous condition to be in because it's basically always fatal, or it ends up with people being in a permanent coma that no one has yet figured out how to reverse, or if it's even possible to do anything about it. And the fact that she's continuing to work so close to where there is a lot of this kind of radiation just kind of exacerbates the issue. But she doesn't want to leave the hotel because this was where she met her significant other, who was recently killed in a gas explosion. So this story begins when January finds a body in one of the hotel rooms that only she can see. And it's a really peculiar, she can't touch it and no one else can see it, but she's certain that it's there because she has actually seen this person on their camera feeds and stuff. Only when she goes searching, she discovers holes in their security video, so she can is able to identify that he was in the hotel, but that's it. She doesn't know why he's there, exactly when he was there, and definitely she's still trying to figure out how he got killed and who did it. But she's also not sure who she can trust, and there's a bunch of chaos now in the hotel since there's about to be this really big meeting dash a bidding competition between people who want to buy the hotel. So you have several really quote unquote important dash wealthy people at the hotel right now causing a big stir. You have the prince of this one country, and you have government representatives and corporate representatives, and they're all people who have their own agendas and who all seem to have a lot of secrets, so she doesn't really know who to trust or who might want to harm who. Like there's just so much, and she's responsible for the security of like all these people. So I think something really interesting about this story was just how it kind of juggles all these different pieces going on along with the mysteries of the hotel itself. For instance, it talks about how the person who first created the hotel actually disappeared very shortly after the hotel was completed, and no one knows where she went. And also, ever since the hotel was first founded, there have been stories about ghosts that haunt the hotel. And January herself in this book starts to see them, and she's really not sure what to make of them. I think all of these things come together to be pretty interesting, with a dose of chaos that comes from the time travel. For instance, like people trying to smuggle dinosaurs and stuff like that. And then also just there's a lot of weird things happening in the hotel itself related to I guess the time travel tech, where like the clocks are starting to go crazy, the sun isn't even rising or setting at the right time, and there's just a lot of things seem to be ramping up, and she feels like it's headed towards some type of disaster that she's trying to prevent without really having many of the pieces to go on. Something I did not like as much about this story, though, I guess, was just that January was so mean to a lot of the hotel people. Like, so I mentioned that she lost her partner somewhat recently in a really tragic incident, and ever since then she's kind of been lashing out at people. Like she's just very angry, and even though a lot of the other people at the hotel, like who also knew her partner, like are trying to help her, and they're trying to be good, and like they're nice people, they consider themselves family, she keeps lashing out at them. Like she's so mean to them that it starts to kind of wear on my sympathies, I guess. On the other hand, the story does acknowledge that this is a problem, and it's something that she works on through the narrative, so I guess it doesn't really continue to bother me as much as it might otherwise have done. Oh, and a heads up that this story is actually written in first person present tense, but I read the whole thing anyway. I actually feel like this is one of the few stories where that combination seemed uniquely suitable. I think probably because of everything it was kind of doing with time and perceptions of time. I think using the present tense with the first person was actually a really good choice for this book.